Welcome to the first episode of Unpacked, a COVID-19 inspired video interview series where I get the stories behind my favourite new songs. For the first episode, I'm very stoked to have Ella Fence joining me talking about her single Don't Feed the Monster. We talk about all sorts of things on this interview, including the scream sound that was in the studio, how she pretty much wrote and recorded it with her co-writer and producer Brad Hosking in one day. We dive deep into the lyrical content and it was a really great chat. I hope you enjoy. Fence, hello.
Hello, how you going?
Yes, good, thanks. I'll just turn you up a tiny bit.
Cool.
So, welcome to the first episode. So what are you up to and where are you? You look like you're in a forest.
I'm in a forest. I'm at my mum's house, so I've just dropped in. I made a pie last night. It was my very first time experimenting with pie making.
Okay, nice.
Which seems to be something that not pie making as a standalone, but definitely going on different cooking adventures has been something that I've been doing through isolation.
Nice.
Much like a lot of other people who have never taken an interest in cooking in their lives and usually eat out all the time. So I made a pie and dropped it off to Mum.
Oh, perfect.
And made myself like a little mini one as well last night that I have already eaten. So I'm here.
Cool.
That's where I am.
And how are you keeping busy? I see you posting a lot of stuff on social media, like performances and really cool kind of interactions with your fans. Like, how's that going?
Oh, thank you. It's going really well. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's been such an interesting time all round. Definitely a lot of adjustment, a lot of getting used to sort of going from, being, having 4 shows a week and being in live music venues and allowed to be, really close to people and to kind of like, being at home all the time. So it was a bit of an adjustment period, but I'm trying to make the most of it and keep up that live element by, having the live streams every Saturday and been learning covers for fans and things like that. So kind of like keeping active and keeping people engaged in sort of different interesting ways that I haven't really had the opportunity to do before now. So just kind of making the most of the situation that we find ourselves in at the present day.
That's all we can do. Hey, well, it seems like from your social media presence, you are using that platform fairly well, and good on you.
Thank you.
Well, so let's just get straight into it, I suppose. I'll give you a bit of a summary of what we're going to do today. It's all going to be about Don't Feed the Monster, mostly,
Perfect.
I suppose. And I've got a couple of excerpts from the song that I've cut up, and I want to kind of talk about some intricate parts of the song.
Awesome.
And you said you might be interested in having a bit of a sing, so are you ready? Are you ready to unpack Don't Feed the Monster?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. So let's we'll start at the very beginning. I just want a bit of background on this song. How did it come about? Where were you when you wrote it? How did it first start?
That's a great question. I wrote it in the studio at Blind Boy Studios with Brad Hosking on the Gold Coast. And it came about, I was really frustrated by sort of a few things that were going on in my life that were both sort of like external to me and also just like a bit of like inner turmoil around a few things and basically like going like Brad and I were sort of having a bit of a debrief about that, and we kind of got in the studio and we were like, what are we going to write about today? It's like, I don't know, but this thing's really annoying me, so why don't we talk about that for like half an hour?
And that's Brad Hosking, right, from Blind Boy Studios? Yeah, cool.
And then we were kind of like going around, I was going around in circles about something, and then I just kind of was like, blah, 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 and like, just don't feed the monster. And it was like, it started all with that line.
So the chorus line was the starting point of the... Wow.
Yeah, and the central focus of where the song began. And it just sort of came, it was literally a conversation that he and I were having, and I was like super frustrated and just like, Yeah, just kind of like in this like cyclic, the vortex of, you know, when you're sort of annoyed about something and you kind of keep circling around about it. And
Amazing.
then, yeah, and that sort of like came out of that. And then after that, we were able to come up, you know, sort of, come up with other themes and sort of build out of that, and then sort of process the actual mess of the situation through that songwriting.
Amazing. I don't know. Yeah, not many songs are written that way. You know, you started with the concept, you started with the vocal hook.
I start everything with vocals, to be honest. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so it's a really interesting way to write. Everyone's got a different style. And I do know from chatting to Brad actually earlier, doing a bit of research for this interview, that did you guys write the song in a day?
Yeah.
Like,
so it was all written, and it wasn't even a day really. It was just kind of like, I mean, a very short session that was really like,
wow.
It was just, I think it was because it was so like, it was such an important and such a prominent sort of theme or something that was just so right in my face at that time. It was kind of like just so easy to write because it was all there, and I was just which is cool, and it is something that I'm really passionate about as well. And so they just kind of flowed, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Like you do hear, you know, some of those great songs, they just come out, you know. Like it sounds like you guys really had a good connection in this studio session, and all the juices were flowing, and it just happened, you know. It's crazy. Some songs take. I mean, I'm sure you've probably got some songs that have taken you months to write in terms of studio and everything, and for this one to come so naturally, I think it really translates in the way that the lyrics and the music kind of gel together really well, and that really makes sense the way you explained it to me. Cool. I suppose the first element of the song I want to talk about, and I'll see if this works. I think my USB might have just connected, but I want to talk about this, the very start of the song where the bass and the keys and your vocal just come straight in, and I'll see if I can play it. Yeah, it did disconnect. Can you hear that?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
So it's that sound. Do you remember, like, was that kind of the first part? How does that part sit in? Because it fit in, because it really, to me, it seems like it's the ultimate kind of collaboration between you and Brad, the vocals, and then his production just kind of coming back and forth in an almost call response way. It drives the whole song. Like,
that's such a good pickup. I mean, it was really meant to be sort of the driving force from the beginning, and that kind of like almost like a bit of a marching sort of like monotony of sound that like has drive but is kind of like a bit regimented so it's a lot about the drive, but I think as much like with those sounds that you're hearing with the like the percussion elements there, it's like I don't even know how many layers that is, but it's like layers upon layers of like really dark, thematically dark sounds, sort of like bones crunching and like really twisted things like that. So we really wanted to capture the idea of sort of, because it's quite a conceptual monster, or a few different monsters that the song refers to, but we wanted to thematically sort of make that really in the production sort of like tell that part of the story, almost the way that you would if you were sort of watching a horror movie, and there's like that sort of soundtrack of like, you know, the squeaking doors and things like that are like just really not on the nose, but just kind of like really closely tie in with that as a theme. So I think it was in a way sort of like bringing that concept to life in a really interesting way. So
I think it's definitely the way you're explaining it there. It brings imagery to whenever I hear the song, I see stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like cinematic almost. Like it's got this.
Yeah,
really
and you can imagine sort of like a monster, and it's a bit creepy, and it's kind of like a bit obscure in the beat of it. So it's like, oh, like is something creeping up on you?
Yeah.
It kind of creates
really
that
works.
tension.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that kind of answers that, and leads me into like my other favourite part of the song, which is the bridge. So the bridge, for people who don't know what a bridge is, I only just learned recently, but now I hear them in all the songs that I listen to, and it's the change. You know, it's the moment where the listener wants to be fascinated by something else. And then it leads usually into like one of the last final choruses and kind of sees the song out. So I'll play the bridge of. Yeah. So that's the bridge, and that part has so much going on for it. As I said, it's my favourite part of the song, one of my favourite parts, because it's just right at the right moment. It gets you fascinated, and it introduces that scream. What's that scream? Like, can you remember? That would have been fun in the recording booth, just screaming.
It's like how to explain this? I guess that having done, as a performer, I've done sort of different roles as an actor and performer in sort of different ways, and we were kind of playing with that that performative nature, or other performative elements that I've kind of introduced into my own sort of story, and it was kind of like, okay, let's try and sample instead of using we were kind of like in the same way that we were creating a percussion beat or a drum beat with other interesting sounds. It was like, okay, well, let's sort of sample some screams and that kind of thing, and see how we can sort of sample that in and make other sounds, like, I don't know whether it's a hi-hat or whatever it is. Yeah. And then I remember Brad just kind of being like, just like give me a couple of screams, like just to see what happens. And
wow,
then that was like really crazy one.
That's me. It's like the key element of the track, because everything stops and it's the scream.
It's pretty like blood curdling scream. Yeah. That was definitely what I was channeling. It was like that sort of like ultimate fear and release at the same time, and like alert and all of that. So and then it was like, oh shit, we better keep that one, and then ended up using that. So I guess like in a section like that, there's a lot of ways that you can transition between sections, like reverse symbol or whatever it might be, and that was like sort of the biggest. That's what we used, I guess, instead of like a reverse symbol or as sort of the key indicator for a new section. Being that scream is a standalone, so it's pretty. I remember like when I first heard it like that, I was like, whoa, that's intense. Yeah, I'm really happy with it, and we keep it. Sort of my band and I keep it live. In the live show as well. So
do you scream? Or do you have that sample that you press play on?
I have the sample. Yeah. It's not a very good, like screaming is not very good. It's the kind of thing that's like pretty, should be pretty selective on when you sort of do it. So my drummer will obviously, will always like pretend to scream most of the time.
And
like often will be like,
you should have that around with you. Yeah, sorry, I just got a 15-minute warning from my housemate. Anyway, you should have that in your pocket with the scream, just like on dial. Scream!
That would actually be so funny. Well, it's a bit sad, but I do actually carry one of those. It's not sad. It's a self-protection, I guess. Yeah. But I have one of those keychains that has that like a personal alarm. Just because I guess like playing gigs and whatever, being out into the evening and that kind of thing, and Yeah, anyway.
Well, that could lead,
so that would actually be a lot better if I could like pull out the pen and instead of like this alarm, just like this huge big blood curdling scream.
Well, I think
scare a few people away, I think.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But yeah, I mean, touching on, and feel free to go as deep or not as you like, but I understand that the lyrical content kind of relates to what you were just talking about, you know, being a woman and kind of, you know, vulnerability and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe could you just give us a bit of insight into the lyrics in that way?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really all-encompassing kind of theme, position that we kind of wrote that from. Sort of like, it's like if you want to take a standpoint on something, then and you always kind of have to back it up with your actions. It's kind of like, I think there's a lot of chat around sort of like what people think that could improve, you know, certain situations for women, whether it's safety or whether it's equality or whatever. But it says a lot about someone's character if they're willing to actually really back that up and learn and back, you know, and no one's expected to be perfect. You know, from the get-go, no one is. That would be a very irrational thing to expect of anyone. But it's kind of like, you know, I think it's easy to kind of like swing. You know, say that you're a feminist or that you stand with feminists and you know that you're supportive, but you also have to be willing to change your own actions and also sacrifice something, because it's like you can't continue to go on. And I mean, like, I'm speaking from a position of privilege myself, but it's like you can't expect to continue going on within your own position, within your own standpoint and position of privilege, if you're not willing to, but also say that you want to make change here. Like, you always have to accept that by changing that and making it better for someone else, you will inadvertently have to change something about your own situation. So it's a bit of that. It's a big concept. It's something that I could talk about for a long time, something I'm really passionate about. And I think it kind of like the inner turmoil around that, I think being a woman and like having that, so it's kind of like having that inner turmoil and that external sort of turmoil around those issues. And I guess it centralizes around that sort of like don't feed the monster, sort of it's not here unless you feed it. It's in the things you do, but you don't mean it. And so it's kind of like, oh, you're doing these things, but you're sort of saying that you don't mean that by it, but just so you know, like, you actively partaking in that is actively doing that. So it's part of this systematic problem.
From what you've explained there, and this is the way that it kind of influenced me as well, is that, like, you do something, but then you always kind of almost second guessing yourself about the repercussions of, do you want to be that person? And I think in today's day and age, I know how amazing it is, like, with all the span of opinions that are getting listened to, that you know, when you do put yourself out there, it's nerve-wracking. And I suppose being an artist and a woman and standing up for something, you get that pushback instantly with you know, wondering if that's the right decision and how am I going to back that up. So that's a pretty deep and interesting layered kind of context for this pretty deep and interesting layered song, I think.
Thank you. I mean, it is, it's a lot. But everyone's learning. I'm learning. Everyone's learning. I think it's just kind of like having an open mind and saying, you know, that that you're willing to improve and listen and kind of make small incremental changes. But it's not enough to kind of say, you know, make comments about a woman's body and then say that you're supportive of women. You know, things like that. It's like those two polarizing things. Like, you can't do one thing and then say that you're something else. You really have to question, and even if that sort of comes up, and it's all contextual and it's usually conversational when you're kind of like in different situations, and it's like, oh, but you really like, you just, if you're not sort of fighting against those kinds of conversations and that kind of narrative, then you're part of the problem. You really are. Like, if you're going to say one thing but do another. I know that sounds so simple, but it's a lot harder, I think, when you kind of feel like you have these values and beliefs, and then you kind of put out into the world, into a societal framework, which you want people to like you, and you want to feel accepted, you want to be part of something.
Yeah.
And so that's all playing a part of it as well. So it's kind of like, it's big, and no one's expecting. And the song's not about expecting people to be perfect, and that's not. I'm in no way, shape, or form think that I am. But it's in terms of like, you know, the way that I go about things. I think everyone's a bit of a work in progress when it comes to that stuff. But it's just having an open mind and a willingness to improve.
Yeah, and I think you've made the first step. I think if you sit there and actually just think too much about how your reaction in the public is towards the action that you're making, then you're never going to do anything. So with someone like you releasing songs like this and actually talking about it, and also considering the repercussions about how you're going to act in the future, I think you need to just do the best, and then, you know, there are going to be some repercussions, but, you know, anyway, it's a deep chat. Okay.
Decision making.
Well, I mean, it kind of leads. We don't have a lot of time left because I want to keep it pretty, you know, within half an hour or whatever. Although I'd love to, maybe we could just keep talking off the camera. But the video, you know, that for me, the video hits the sweet spot because of how simple it is. Like, I see so many videos, and I've worked in the music industry a little bit, and I've seen people blow budgets on special effects and explosions and zip lines, and the videos are terrible because there's too much going on. You're pretty much in a room or in a house, and your performance is really good. The concept is simple, and you nail it in terms of simplicity. So well done with that, and I bet you it was fun to make. With the costumes and stuff.
It was fun to make, especially like the sort of having a body double. The costumes, the beautiful costumes by Racy and Lucky, and the zoo, the live music venue, the zoo in Brisbane. We filmed it there. They were awesome about like letting us use that space and really making it over. We turned it into an apartment sort of thing. So
that's funny.
Some of the grunge of it. So it was so much fun to make. It was a really long day, but or you know, few days, I guess, like conceptualizing it all and backwards and forwards and that kind of stuff. But the team were amazing to work with, and it was a great experience.
I'll post the video in the comments of wherever this lands on Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that, so people can check it out.
Awesome.
I'll also post the remix, which is fresh off the press of Don't Feed the Monster. There's a lot going on, and
that's it.
That's it, and good luck at the Gold Coast Music Awards coming up.
Thank you.
Awards.
So excited. It's going to be a fun night. A virtual night.
Virtual night online. I mean, everything's virtual now, but, you know, we're all adapting, and
that's it.
Awesome. Well, it was great chatting to you, Elephants. So
Thank you.
I'll see you on the other side.
See you later.
See ya. Okay. So that was the first episode of Unpacked. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to tune in to see if Elephants wins a couple of awards at this week's Gold Coast Music Awards. See ya.